Now, let me tell y'all something. Have y'all ever emailed Tiffany? Because, she has never, since she's been the mayor, responded herself to an email. Ever. She didn't even have access because she says she don't like responding to emails.
All right, so let me break this down for y'all real quick. I'm about to read you this article straight from the Daily Southtown, and it lays every...
But I want to educate people in my delivery of receipts that y'all thought I didn't have. I always keep my receipts.
Everything out exactly what went down when Tiffany Henyard showed up in court with her attorney in tow. Now check this, attorneys who are out here representing former Dalton Mayor Tiffany Henyard. They're already out here talking about...
But I got the receipts right here on ice, like I always do. Y'all asked for it, and I'm about to deliver.
How they plan to file an affidavit. And guess what that affidavit says? And they're claiming that Tiffany straight up does not have the records that are being requested in this ongoing lawsuit. Yep, that's the move they're...
I tell you, FOIA, a lot of times people don't know, so they just go off of what they heard. Go FOIA the information and learn for yourself, educate yourself.
Going with, instead of bringing in the documents like the court's been asking, they're planning to officially say she doesn't even have them. That's the angle. So here's what really went down. Henyard was ordered to pull up to court this past Friday at the Daily Center in Chicago. And why? Because she was supposed to hand over documents that had been requested way back last year by the Edgar County Watchdogs, that nonprofit group that stays on folks' necks. And get this, these aren't just any documents. These are records that are considered public under the Freedom of Information Act, meaning she was supposed to cough them up, no questions asked, but nope, she kept playing games. And because of that, Cook County Judge Kate M. Morrissey had to step in. Back on May 23rd, the judge straight up hit her with a contempt order for repeatedly ignoring court orders like they didn't even matter. Now check this, Henyard was actually called to testify. Her attorney? Yep, good old B.O. Brinley stepped up and told Judge Moreland straight to her face that Henyard wouldn't be taking the stand. Why? Because according to him, there's an ongoing federal investigation into possible misconduct during her time as mayor of Dalton. So yes, let that sink in. There's an active federal investigation on Henyard right now. Am I shocked? Nah, and I'm pretty sure y'all ain't too surprised either. And after the hearing, Brinley came right out and confirmed that he's the one representing Henyard in that federal case. And what's the story he's sticking with? Same old song, she doesn't have the documents. That's their big defense. And get this, the one document they're asking for? Henyard's out here claiming she doesn't even remember what it is. Yep, she says she doesn't have it. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I'm just not buying this whole I don't remember act. Like, seriously? You expect us to believe you forgot? Yeah, okay. And don't even worry, I got proof coming up later in this video. I'll show you exactly why that excuse doesn't fly, but let's keep it moving. Time to get into the next part of the article. So here's what went down. The Edgar County Watchdogs officially filed a lawsuit against the village of Dalton back in February 2024. And why? Because they never got the documents they requested a month earlier. According to the lawsuit, the Watchdogs actually filed 2 separate FOIA requests. And guess how many responses they got? 0. Not a single reply from Henyard's office. But hey, are we even surprised at this point? We all know how amazing she is at answering emails, right? So here's where it gets real interesting. Attorneys for the Edgar County Watchdog said on Friday that the village of Dalton did hand over some documents, specifically copies of all credit card statements going back to October 1st, 2023. Okay, that's one piece. But the document they're still waiting on? That one piece of paper Tiffany Henyard proudly waved around during a public meeting in January, the so-called proof that the trustees canceled the credit cards? Yeah, that document is still missing. Just another moment where Tiffany Henyard puts her own foot squarely in her mouth, according to the lawsuit. During that board meeting, Tiffany held up a paper and claimed it proved the trustees had canceled the cards. That's the same meeting where she tried to make it sound like she had all the receipts, all the evidence. And honestly, a lot of people remember that moment because that's around when Dalton board meetings started catching serious public attention. Let's keep it real. Nobody was really thinking about Dalton until she became mayor. And even then, it wasn't because of anything positive. But if you don't remember that meeting, no worries, I got you. She literally opened with, "Also, too, y'all know I'm the receipts lady, right? I always got paper." Right off the bat, she's trolling. Since when is she known for having receipts? That's actually her whole issue. She never has them when it matters. She goes on, "I got a paper trail for all of them. They were saying that we lying about the credit card. Here's the proof right here, an email from the bank saying they canceled the card. I'm gonna give it to all y'all, including the public. But my point is, stop believing the lies. They lie so much up here, it don't make no sense." So she's literally waving this paper around, claiming it's proof. And now, months later, she's in court. And suddenly that same paper she was so proud of has vanished. Now let's fast forward. Tiffany Henyard, former mayor of Dalton, and now the Thornton Township supervisor gets called to court, and instead of testifying, she pleads the fifth. Her court appearance was short and pretty uneventful. She was ordered to show up in person after being found in contempt for ignoring Illinois transparency laws and refusing to hand over public records. Then she hits reporters with a quote, "I have my own evidence. One day, when I put it all out, y'all gonna be like, dang, I wish I had given that young lady a chance. I wish I had heard another side. I'm gonna come out smelling like roses." Smelling like roses? Ma'am, okay. As mentioned, she didn't take the stand. Her attorney, B.O. Brinley, pled the fifth on her behalf. A reporter asked her, "Tiffany, any thoughts about being ordered to appear in court today?" And her response was, "In the next week or two, you'll hear me speak on everything that's been said about me. It's facts over fiction. I'll show receipts." Sound familiar? Because we've heard that line before, receipts lady. And yet, here we are, still waiting. Friday's hearing was centered around that lawsuit filed by the Edgar County Watchdogs. They sued the village of Dalton after Tiffany's administration ignored two separate FOIA requests back in January. These weren't vague requests, they were specifically asking for spending records and key documents from her time in office. But according to Brinley, Tiffany doesn't have the document in question. In fact, he claims she has no idea what document anyone's talking about. His exact words. It was some random piece of paper from some board meeting, and she couldn't possibly be expected to remember what it was. Especially considering, he says, how many meetings there were and how chaotic things were in Dalton. And I mean, sure, it was chaotic, but that chaos, that came from your client. And let's talk about these attorneys for a second. They're out here looking real serious, but there's no way they're actually proud to be defending her. Meanwhile, Tiffany has that signature smirk like she's loving every bit of the attention, even if it's the wrong kind. And now Brinley wants to stand by this idea that Tiffany has absolutely no clue what document people are referencing, even though the board meeting has already been identified, recorded, and shared all over the internet. So let me just remind everyone once more what she said in that meeting. They were saying that we lying about the credit card. Here's the proof right here, an email saying they canceled the card from the bank. I'm giving it to all y'all, including the public. Stop believing the lies. If that's not clear evidence of contradiction, I don't know what is. What she's doing here is called projection. In psychology, projection is when someone takes their own negative behavior and pushes it onto someone else to avoid responsibility. And Tiffany, she's a master at it. Every time she steps up to speak, every time she turns a board meeting into a one-woman show, she's doing it blaming others for what she herself is guilty of. She go into these dramatic speeches. I'm still building while y'all trying to tear her down. We should look like one band, one sound. Let's act like we're unified like other communities. They fight behind closed doors, but they show unity in public. We can do that too, if people stop trying to be me. And then 5 minutes later, she's throwing public tantrums, calling everyone liars, flipping the script and acting like she's being persecuted. Just look at how she talks to her fellow officials. Trustee House, Kiana Belchor, she says. Things like, y'all wouldn't even have your seats if it weren't for me. I carried y'all. I won by 82%. I'm your leader. And everyone else is just sitting there thinking, what is she even talking about? She'd do exactly what she's accusing others of, and then act shocked when people call her out. It's exhausting, and I know some of y'all can relate dealing with grown adults who act like toddlers, who never take accountability, who twist every situation to make themselves the victim. That's why I don't even waste my time on people. Like Tiffany Henyard in real life. I'll talk about the drama for the content, sure, but toxic people like this, I keep my distance. Life's too short to let someone like that drain your peace now. I want to hear from y'all. How do you handle toxic people in your life? Do you cut them off? Call them out? Let's talk about it in the comments. And if the toxic person is your boss, don't feel stuck. There's always someone above them. File a report, or if that doesn't work, start preparing your exit. I get it, rent's high, bills are nonstop, but your peace matters more than their mess. Eva will. Anyway, back to Henyard. In court, she was asked to testify, but because of that ongoing FBI investigation into alleged misuse of funds and retaliation against perceived enemies during her time as mayor and township supervisor, her lawyer advised her to plead the fifth, and honestly, that's probably the smart move for anyone with a lawyer in her position. She's no longer a public official, and she has every right to protect herself. But according to court documents, Henyard flat out ignored multiple emails from the Dalton Council last fall when they requested those same records in response to FOIA requests. And let's be clear, these weren't wild fishing expeditions. The Edgar County watchdogs were asking for something basic: credit card statements. Their attorney summed it up perfectly, saying, all my clients wanted, and what the public deserved, was to see what she was waving around as proof that the cards were canceled. But with no documents in hand, Henyard's attorneys were allowed to submit an affidavit claiming she doesn't have the paperwork. Brindley said, all we have to do is file the affidavit. The judge agreed, we'll do it right away. At the end of the day, it feels like the people of Dalton already gave their answer when they voted her out. And now her defense boils down to, well, I'm not in office anymore, so I'm off the hook. But the watchdog's attorney wasn't buying it. He said, we don't believe someone can just burn a piece of paper or get rid of the document. And honestly, he's right. Even if she physically destroyed the paper, there's usually a digital trail if it came by email. That reminds me of something Dr. Nikita Cloud said at one of those Tea with the Trustees events, how Keith D. Freeman, who worked under Henyard, allegedly wiped her emails. She said, I had proof they told us not to come to the board meeting. He emailed us saying we'd be fired if we came. Then he went into my email and wiped it. When I quit, I only had 20 emails left between me and him. I was chief of staff, he was village administrator. We should have had way more, but he wiped it. So yeah, Freeman wasn't walking away from that mess without pressure. He only turned whistleblower because he had no other way out. After Fridays. Hearing, the watchdog's attorney, Edward Coach, Winhouse, made it clear they're not backing down. And Judge Moreland? She ruled that Henyard would be fined $1,000 per day starting May 30th until she either hands over the documents or files that affidavit. Brindley said they'd file by Monday. Meanwhile, Brindley kept trying to make it sound like this is all overblown, arguing that the situation happened over a year ago and she's no longer in office, so why bother? But holding public officials accountable isn't silly, it's necessary. And while Henyard may not have been the official FOIA officer, Keith Freeman, her right-hand man, was the one blocking those requests. There's no doubt she knew exactly what was going on. And right after pleading the fifth, Tiffany did what Tiffany always does. She hopped on Facebook Live to rant. She called herself your favorite super mayor and the people's mayor, thanked her supporters, teased a book tour, and claimed she had so much to say. According to her, she's been quiet lately, which, come on, that's laughable. She accused her critics of being haters who want to see her fall and painted herself as this beacon of love and inspiration. Then she turned on the very trustees she helped get elected, claiming they'd be nobodies without her, and accusing them of betrayal. And because it wouldn't be a Henyard love without a little bizarre twist, she actually started singing, yes, singing "na na na, hey 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 goodbye" like she was walking away victorious. She thanked her former staff and Keith Freeman for sticking by her. The whole rant felt more like a one-woman show than any serious address. She even gave a shout-out to her 6-year-old daughter, Justice, claiming Justice has a book coming out. Soon? Really? A 6-year-old author? Tiffany said she named her daughter Justice because she fights for justice, trying to spin this deep narrative. But if you watch the old board meeting video, she simply said she had a healthy baby girl named Justice, just like her mama, and laughed about it, probably thinking, what justice? Her tenure as trustee was nothing but chaos constant. Arguments, refusing to work as a team, always combative. And people still wonder how someone like that became mayor. Truth is, she had help. Kiana Belchor, Allison Key, and Jason House, the same trustees she now trashes, were the ones who endorsed her, campaigned for her, and convinced voters to back her despite her record. Tiffany loves to remind them of that, acting like they owe her everything. But honestly, if they hadn't hit the pavement for her, she wouldn't have made it to the mayor's office at all. And there's video proof. The whole dream team backing Tiffany. Kiana asking voters to punch 11 for trustee. Allison Key pushing her clerk campaign alongside Tiffany, Jason House giving glowing endorsements. They all played a part in putting her in power, and yes, they regret it now. But sometimes you have to live through the mess to learn the lesson. Unfortunately for Dalton, that lesson cost them dearly. What's frustrating is the warning signs were always there. Tiffany's behavior as a trustee wasn't a secret. If more residents had watched those board meetings, they'd have seen how immature, combative, and self-centered she was. When things didn't go her way, she'd erupt, accuse people of brainwashing, and flat-out refuse to hear anyone else's side. It was never about teamwork or serving the community, it was always about her. And that's exactly the Tiffany Henyard voters elected because too many people didn't do their homework. Now, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying we'd be besties. I'm talking about basic respect, like sitting down and having a professional conversation about agenda items. And Trustee Denton? She seems like she actually handles herself with grace. But even she gets called out in meetings with petty stuff like, you don't answer your phone. And we all know that's the go-to complaint. People avoid Tiffany. Because she's chaos and real talk? You can't reason with crazy. You can't reason with a hard head. Sometimes you just have to move on. Now, let's circle back to Tiffany's courthouse Facebook Live. There was one thing she said that really stood out. Let me break it down. She said, to my wonderful parents, Mr. and Mrs. Henyard, yeah, y'all stay tuned because he got like a little goat coming out. You gonna get the goat from Rome real soon? Mr. Henyard, he likes to stay on that grill. For those that haven't had goat before, it's really good, spicy. That will be coming out as well. Did you catch that? She mentioned her dad grilling. Goat, now why bring that up randomly in a courthouse rant? See, I think she dropped that little nugget on purpose, laying the groundwork for her own defense about what happened at the Rock Island car wash. If you don't know what I'm talking about, let me catch you up. There was this suspicious fire behind the Rock Island car wash. Somebody was burning something. Her boyfriend claimed he owned the place, but when folks checked the paperwork, surprise, he didn't. That whole night smelled shady. A lot of people suspected evidence was being burned. I even made a video about it, and I wasn't the only one. The footage from the next morning is wild. So now, here comes Tiffany randomly talking about her dad grilling goat. Feels like she's planting the seed for a cover story. I've never heard her mention her dad grilling, never heard her talk about goat before. Have you? If you have, drop it in the comments because this is a first for me. And now she wants us to believe it's a family tradition? Okay, Sis Dotso, what do y'all think? Is she tossing that goat story out as a preemptive defense for whatever questions are coming? Sure sounds like it to me. Anyway, that's all I've got for today's video. Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you're feeling this, hit that like button. And if you're new here, go ahead and subscribe. We've got a lot more to unpack.